I've been in dogs since 1991. We breed dogs that we want to train. I was out here in western Nebraska riding Harleys and training dogs. I don't sugarcoat anything, and if you don't like it, tough.
Hello and welcome to the Flatlander Kennels podcast with Chris Jobman. We are back. Chris is back from the Grand. This first episode, we're recording 2 tonight for you guys. And this first one was we're just going to do a breakdown of the Grand and the experience that Chris had out there. And also there's been some information that's been posted about the Grand. You can see that on the Flatlander Kennels podcast Facebook group. So go on over there and sign up. Chris, I think you were fairly happy with what happened at the Grand, if I'm not reading you correctly.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining again. I'm always disappointed. I mean, I passed 9, which my pass rate was double of the national pass rate, so that's always good. I always try to go in, wanting to pass at least 50%, and there's just some things like this just happens at every Grand that we can't control. Lighting, we ran, terrible light in the first series, terrible light in the second series towards the end. And it's just, you can't control that stuff. And, you just hope the dogs can pull through, but you get a little bit of chink in your armor at the Grand and you're out. It don't take you very long. So, but overall, yeah, I was happy with it. I guess
before you break down the Grand, let's take a step back and talk about that week before, because last time we were on here, we had Rhett and Chris Aiken and Eric Tees on here. How did that week before go? How did you feel during that week? Was there any? Because I know you mentioned sometimes you guys have things go wrong, and it's always problem solving stuff.
It was so Eric. He's with Habitat Flats Kennels, and we all met there. Our whole training group met there. Because the weather in Wisconsin for pre-Grand training was terrible. 40 degrees, rain, wind. It was terrible. So we went down there into his kennel and his staff, and, they put on a great deal for us. We had bird throwers. It was fantastic. It was fun to see the kennel there. It was fun to see everybody.
So you spend the whole week, the whole pre-Grand week was at Habitat Flats? Yep. Oh, awesome.
Yep. So, and we drove up on, let me think about this. So we didn't train on Wednesday. We drove up on Wednesday. And then we trained on Thursday, and then we ran on Friday. And so we spent the entire week before that at the kennel. We traveled on Wednesday. It was about 7.5 hours. And then we trained on Thursday, and then we started on Friday. So it was really good. How many days
were you guys at? How many days did you end up being at Habitat Flats?
3 days.
Okay.
It was one of the shorter pre-Grand trainings. We usually do 5 days. But my youngest son was graduating high school that weekend. And I wasn't, obviously missed that, so we didn't leave early. But we it was good. We had really good help at his kennel. Everybody, we got all the dogs ran. I mean, we had 70. I think our flight was 87 dogs, and our Grand training group has 72 of them.
Oh man!
So
what letter were you guys?
I think we were D. I think we were D.
You were D. Okay.
Yeah. And so it's basically our entire flight is our training group.
Yeah.
And it looks like a test, trucks and trailers and awnings and canopies and we had a really good time and that's my favorite part of the Grand is the pre-training. I love all them guys and some of my best friends and we just we get together a few times a year. It's really fun. Like all the shit talking is unbelievable. It is.
Right,
it is unbelievable. And and I took Isaac with you. You've not met Isaac yet, but he works here. He's a prison guard. He works at a really good friend of mine. He works at the kennel here part time, and he's got 2 really nice dogs. And he went with me to help me because I had 22 dogs. And he's like, he was like, if people didn't know you guys were friends, they'd think you'd hate each other. And then he goes, and it was funny because Isaac made the comment. He's like, it's really cool to see a group of people that are that tight. I mean, our group is very, very, very tight, and we'll do anything for anybody, and it's a lot of fun, and that's what's most important to me is that group of friends we have, and it makes things so much better. It really does.
Yeah. So, do you guys run e-collars during that week beforehand?
Yes. Yeah. So a lot of the guys, they come to the line without their e-collars on. and then they run the marks without their collars on, and they put the collars on to run the blinds. I always run my collar. I don't ever let them, I know why they do it. They're trying to simulate the hunt test, that sort of thing. But I'll tell you, most of the time, these dogs, as soon as they, hear one dog yip or something down there, they're like, okay, jig's up. They already know. They know in this training. So I just keep my collar on the entire time, and that way I don't let them get away with anything at the line. And that seems to really work for me. I've done it both ways. Most people, I used to do this all the time, is the only way to really get a dog, I know you talked about this on your video, trying to set up a training day. The only way you are really going to get a dog convinced it's in a test is you got to drive a little bit, you got to travel, and then nobody runs collars, nobody gets into dogs. So they think you're at a test. The second you put a collar on, or they see a healing stick, or they hear another dog yip, the jig's up. It's over. So that's the way to do it. Your very first day you get there is the day to do that. But I usually just run a collar, and then that's just what I do.
Well, that ruins my idea. I wanted to create something called Healing Stick Hunt Test, where it's just like a hunt test, and I have little Georgie up there, and someone sneaks up with a healing stick, and she creeps, and they just nail her.
Well, you can try that, but unless you've got a pile of trucks and trailers and all that stuff there on your drive, it's not going to work. She's going to know. She's going to know. You just need to do reverse healing. That's what you need to do.
Yeah.
So
that's what I had someone mention that, and just reverse heal every time, and
and I do it on those dogs that have line manner issues. I do it on every one of their marks. They'll throw the mark out, and I'll slowly start backing away and reverse heal them and I don't say anything to them. You don't say heal or anything. You just start slowly backing away, and you use the collar. It's up to them to keep the relationship between you and the dog. It's up to them. And
so you give little nicks if they don't back up with you. You give them little nicks.
Yes, and you use as much pressure as you need to. And a lot of times it's continuous. A lot of times it's continuous. But here's the thing about that. And a lot of people don't like to do this because they think it's mean to the dog or whatever. It's not. But what happens is your performance in the field, your marking and all that stuff is going to go down because they're more worried about staying with you than the mark, right? But eventually that all goes away and they catch up and everything's fine. But when you first initially do that, your marking will go down. That's why when we do it, we run singles only. We only do it on singles to teach them what we want. You don't try to run a multiple and do that because then you're handling it. It's just not good.
Yeah. So, well, on that video that you watched, it caught her creeping, cost her not seeing me swing the gun, and she didn't even see a mark because of it because she was so far out in front of me. Yep. So,
and I watched that video. Fixed. You need to slow down. You're way down. I watched that video where you try to center on that blind, that left mark. I mean, you need to really talk her into that spot, even though she didn't see it. That holding line was sticking out just a little tiny bit. And if you were talking where's that mark at? Where's that mark? And really talk her into that spot and at that destination, take your time, as much time as you need. And sometimes at the Grand, I'm up there for 10, 20 seconds trying to talk them into a spot. And that doesn't sound like a long time, but it is, So if you were to really talk her into that spot, like, where's that mark? Where's that mark? I'll guarantee you could have shot her up in there because the only place she had to go was right at that tree and she'd have found the bird.
Yeah.
And then one thing
and
about
for those
that
of you who don't know what Chris is talking about is when Chris was at the Grand, I was at the Flint Oak Master Test, and there was a triple, and flyer was down the middle, and then short mark on the right, and then a longer one on the left. And she didn't swing and see the third, the go bird. And so we ran that one last, and I just ran it like a blind.
Yeah, and you can do
which
that.
She was able. Yeah,
but you did it quickly. You did it really quick. I mean, you could have just.
Well, I don't have a lot of faith in. I don't have a lot of when I'm running a blind and I'm trying to get her lined up. I don't have a lot of faith in being able to move her head small increments.
Yeah.
So when I see her looking on the right spot, I tend to just shoot her off because my ability to move her between like 12 and 1, 12 and 2, pretty good. 12 and 1, So it's like if I see her lined up, I want to just let her rip.
If you would take your time and really practice some of that stuff, and you can really, it's amazing what you can talk dogs into a spot, especially dogs like Georgie, where Georgie's a very, very optimistic dog. Like she wants every bird. And I think I counted up, I sent dogs on 7 marks that they didn't see at the Grand, and only one of them didn't pick it up.
Nice.
So you got it. Georgie's a very, very, optimistic dog, and if you were to talk her in that spot, she's going to believe you. She's like, "Oh yeah, there's a bird there.
Yeah.
There's a bird there." What you should do is like, "Hey, there's a teal out there. There's a teal. Go get that teal," because that's what's caused your creeping. It's teal season when she was 8 months old.
You've watched that teal hunt. That was as controlled. She wasn't 8 months old. She was a year and a half. 8 months. Changing the story. Year and a half old, super controlled, perfectly steady.
It's so funny you brought that up. I brought that up because Bill Maggard, super good friend of the kennel here and a friend of mine, he brought Blitz back, and Blitz has got 3 grand passes. He's never failed a grand. And he's got his master title and his M&H and the whole deal. He's one of the nicest dogs we've ever had here. And he brought him back for the summer. He got here a couple days ago. And I'm like, well, so we're going to run the Grand with him in the fall and the National? He's like, I don't know. I said, why do you not want to do that? He's like, well, teal season's in September. I'm like, Bill, you're going to skip 2 national events for 2 weekends of teal hunting? So we've come to a compromise, and he's going to take Blitz home for the teal week and then bring him back, and because the Grand is until a little or in October sometimes. We have plenty of time, but that's literally why he's going to go teal hunting. That was his deal. It was funny. He brought it up. He's like, I love it when you and Elliot talk about teal hunting. You give him grief. It's funny. So
they've cut teal season down. Now it's from 3 weekends down to 2 in both Nebraska and Kansas. So,
are you gonna be okay?
my wife is doing a book for a WNBA player that plays for the Las Vegas team. And they're having a book signing the second week of teal season. So I'm going to be in Vegas on one of those weekends.
Are you going to be okay?
My wife's the only person that could get me to skip.
Are you going to be okay?
Hey, I've never been to Vegas. It's like my wife doesn't ask me to skip hunting weekends very often. So that'll be fun.
I hope you get to go out there and go to the Sphere. Go look at that. I've
heard about that. Yeah.
Eileen and I were just talking about that today. We want to go out there, and they said that Sphere is unbelievable.
I've heard that too.
I think it's incredible.
Yeah, we've got a couple nights there and then a night in Denver, so it'll be fun.
Oh, that'll be
fun.
She
did get me to skip. Yeah, she got me to skip a weekend of teal. So
you got to do what the boss wants.
Yeah, it'll be a blast.
So that's how many passes for Georgie is that now? 4?
She's got 4. Yep,
she got 2 more, huh? Good.
And my friend Cole has talked me into trying to qualify for the national amateur, which is I think Wisconsin next year. And honestly, Chris, I don't train near enough. I once or twice a week is all. I mean, I just don't train that much. Now I do a lot. Once the summer gets going, I do more stuff by myself. But if we're talking about actually traveling and going to the amateur national, I will train a lot more.
Well, you need to come out here and prepare. You need to come out here and prepare for that. I can help you. But
that's what I was thinking. Maybe next June, coming out there for like a week or two.
100%. Come out and do that, and you can run some tests here if you want to. But I mean, you've done really good with her. You don't train that much, and she's done fantastic. So I mean, she really has.
But she was calmer. She was calmer on the line than she was out. With you guys out at your place last year. I mean, the creeping was still there, but overall she was a little calmer. So I felt good about that. She did a nice job.
Why we run, that's why we run HRC first and we don't run junior and senior. We just go straight to master. And the reason why we run HRC first is so that we can talk to the dogs at the line and stop the creeping. Because if you start out in AKC first, and you can't talk to your dogs, they're creeping all over hell and you can't stop them. And then you got a problem. So that's why we start with HRC first.
Do you think, because you've always given me hell about how I over talk, and you're always trying to get me to talk less. Do you think my over talking her in HRC contributed to them once that was taken away at AKC? That contributed to because she did not creep in HRC when I'm constantly running my mouth to her.
I don't think it contributed to your AKC creeping. I think it contributes to overall obedience, overall disobedience, because you talk so much, she tunes you out.
Yeah, I've been working on it. I've been working on the routine. So we've got a routine coming out of the kennel every time. I've been working on the routines. I've been working on just, I've been working on just being more strict with her in all areas. I think it is helping.
It is. But once again, when she brought the bird back, you're like, hold, leave it. I mean, she knows what all that means. She doesn't even hear you.
Right.
So I think
I'll have to watch that back and think more about it.
Yeah, and so anybody that's listening to this, the least amount of stuff that you can talk to them at a test, the better off you are, because eventually all that is nagging, and they tune you out. So just when you give a command, you need that. Give the command because you need the command, not because you're nervous and you need to get your energy out somehow. And that's when I see a lot of amateurs or pros, and they're doing a lot of talking. It's nervous energy they have to get out of their system. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'll tell you, that weekend I did feel, for the first time, the last 2 series, I felt way calmer. I mean, like completely different. So I'm starting to calm down, because before, man, it was the nervousness I had was just too much. And now for the first time, I was actually enjoyed it. I was calmer. And so that's a really big thing for me to get past myself. That's like taking me 12 or 13, 14 tests to get there, but I'm feeling more calm.
That's not that many. I mean, that's not that many.
Yeah.
I mean, there's people that run a lot more than that, but that are like that. But I haven't got to watch the entire video. I forgot about it. I was gonna, and I'm gonna finish watching it tonight. But I'm glad she got another pass. That's good. That's real good.
Yep, that's 4 out of 4. So she's gone, I think, 6 for 6, and HRC finished in 4 out of 5 on master.
You started and finished,
so I feel pretty good about that.
You started and finished.
We started. We did one started, and then we got our season title, then our finish title.
Okay, yeah,
and then just jumped right over to Casey.
She's had a great career, and so let's get back to the Grand. So it's funny. Yep. So, Georgie's dad, Flash, passed again, so that's his 9th pass. Georgie's brother, Red, got his Grand title, so he's a Grand champion now. Amber Everett,
and that's out of the same litter, right? That's full brother. So Flash is the dad, got his 9th title. Red's is her little mate brother. He got his Grand title. Elliot, he was fantastic. He's always a great dog. He was really, really. He went through on all 2s, no handles, lion blinds. I mean, nice. he was fantastic. And then Amber Everett's dog Linda, who's a puppy here too, which is a litter mate to your dog, our dogs. She got her 4th Grand Pass. Wow.
No, excuse me.
That's
she went
fantastic.
out. Excuse me, I forgot that. She went out, but she almost didn't passed it. So it was a good showing for that litter, and that's been a really good litter. So, but so I passed 9. So I gotta get everybody shout out. Byron Hassel owns a dog named Charlie, who just turned 5. She's a female out of a dog I used to own named Jet, who passed away. She got her 6th Grand Pass.
Wow.
Just turned 5. So she's about
That's
to be
the Byron that I met down there when we were hunting?
Yes, one of my best friends from Florida. And she got her 6th Grand Pass, and she just turned 5. So she's on the cusp of doing something extremely special. Ozzy, who's owned by Jason Thompson, got his 3rd Grand Pass. Indy, who is also out of Jet, she got owned by Darren Toft. She got her 4th Grand Pass. Preacher he just turned 3. He's owned by Chris Tracy. He got his Grand title. So, actually, I take that back. He needs a couple more. He needs 2 more finished passes. He'll have the Grand title. A dog that we own named Rainey passed. She needs a couple more finished passes for her Grand title as well. And then Clutch, who is owned by Eileen, my wife, he got his Grand title. Louie, owned by Lindy Meyer, got his 4th Grand Pass. I'm going through all of them again. I was really close to passing a whole bunch of them. Anyway, I think that's 9. I think I remember them all. Preacher, Rainey, Ozzy, Red, Clutch, Flash, Charlie, Indy, Louie, and that's it.
That's
Preacher
9 there. Yeah, that's 9 there.
Yeah, that's 9. So that wasn't bad. The tests were really, really challenging this year, like they always are. But up there at Bong State Recreation Area, that's some really, really good grounds. And I think if that's where the Master National Amateurs are going to be held, they've got great grounds for it. I mean, what it is, I think it was an old Air Force base is what it was. So there's a bunch of runways and stuff. It's beautiful up there. Absolutely gorgeous. So
were there any particular setups that stand out to you as whether you liked them or overly difficult, or you guys got weird weather situations that made things difficult?
Our first series was what was our first series? It was a water test. the wind was blowing right to left all day long, and then it flipped 180 degrees partway through the day and went the exact opposite way. And you can see it in callbacks. When that wind shifted, it killed us. It was killing us. And then the sun was going down, and there was water. Like the sun was going down, so the water was shiny. That had that sheen on it. Man, it ate dogs. They couldn't see where they were going. It just ate them alive. And I had a few dogs that handled and got out because of it. They just couldn't see where they're going. It was so bright. It was so bright. And then our second series was Garmin Land. It had a 175-yard go bird, which doesn't sound like a long ways, but you got to understand something. At the Grand, you can't see holding blinds. You can't see wingers. You have no idea where the bird's coming out at. And that was a big test. And we ran till dark. And the last 10 or 15 dogs in that test really got it. They really struggled with it because they just couldn't see. Just couldn't see. So it was a hard thing.
Well, I really enjoyed. I think it was you that was filming them. That there was a couple of setups that you were putting on.
Yeah.
The FLK Instagram account. It's really interesting to see those setups, and man, they look really challenging. There was one that Eric lined the blind on that was just, man.
That was Garmin.
I think it was you, right?
That was Garmin. Eric ran that dog, Gideon, as our test dog. The first series, our test dog couldn't do the test. And most of them can't. So he ran Gideon. He ran Gideon as our test dog the entire way. And Gideon's the grand champion. He's an FC, the whole deal. And he just pounded it. He looks fantastic. But it's hard to, the Grand is so difficult. You have no idea what's going to happen and when you're going to run. Sun's going in your face. The wind changes. The sun's going down. And every dog that we took deserved to be there. It's just hard. It's just hard.
Yeah.
Our judges were really fair in every series. We ran Avery Water, our third series, and we ran Purina Land, our fourth series. Great big test. Avery Water there wasn't a mark over 65 yards, and the blind was about the same. And they had a 20-yard mark in there that a pile of us handled on. It was all these cattails and birds were singing. It was just tough. And if you look at the description in the magazine, they're like, 65, 20. They're like, that's a finish test. And when I walked up to do it, we walked up to it, and we're like, this is a finish test. This is a finish test. And next thing you know, and Ake and I are scratching our heads. We're handling dogs. We're tweeting. It was a nightmare. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Flash handled him a 20-yard mark.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like,
what made that so hard? Just the cattails?
The cattails and the lighting. And the wind was very, very difficult. It was swirling so you saw the cattails, how the cattails are blowing, but at the bird it wasn't doing that. It was swirling in there. Dogs were doing stupid. It was crazy. It was crazy, and that hurt me a little bit there. And I held them all together in our fourth series. Purina Land was a great big test, big test, and it was high cover. And then upland, was always you never know what's going to happen in the damn upland, but we got them all through. But so it was a very, very challenging Grand because I think it was a 20% pass rate, 21% or whatever it was. And there was a few tests in there. I'm glad we didn't run. I heard dive bomb water was a nightmare. I talked to one of the judges who's a good friend of mine, and it took 35 on day one. It took 35 dogs to get twos on it. So it took 35 dogs to run before the first one got twos.
Jeez.
It was eating them up.
Yeah. About what percentage of these dogs are amateur? I imagine it's below 20%.
Yeah, not very many. I think Amber is an amateur in our flight. And she passed her dog Jessie, who it's her third pass now. Other than that, I think there might have been one other amateur that passed a dog in her flight. That's it. And that usually happens like that. But I'll bet you it's under 20% of the dogs are actually amateur dogs.
Yeah. Out of that, it's in the single digit passes probably of the amateur.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. So it's not that they can't do it. It's just very hard. It's just a hard thing. And, a lot of amateurs only have one or two dogs, which is you only got one bullet. You got to be really, really good.
Yeah. Yeah. And amateurs don't typically have all of the water and all of the years and years and years of doing it behind them too.
Yeah.
Like the pros do.
Yeah, and you know, and sometimes, you know, you got really amateurs are really good amateur, and there's some really good amateurs there. But when you run as many dogs as Chris and I, after a while you learn the test. I mean, you learn where to put them, and an amateur with 1 or 2 bullets doesn't have that luxury of throwing a bunch of dogs at it and learning the test. So we really try to help anybody in our flight. You know, even in the pros, we're all talking about, you know, you need to be over here, you need to be the right side of this bush, you need to. So we do a lot of talking, and this Grand, for some reason in our flights, in our tests, the go bird was like running past a short bird, like the middle bird is like running past it, and you know, and a lot of times that confuses the dogs. You know, they can't get that short bird out of the way on their way to the long bird, and it screws them all up. But this Grand here, it made us work a lot. So, you know, a dog would be going for like in our first series, the wind was blowing right to left across that middle bird when I posted that video, and the dog would get in the water and go, you know, get out of the water and drive that long go bird and smell the middle bird and go pick it up. So now you're like, oh shit. So then you go get the right bird, then you got to poke back out there on the go bird. So it caused us to do a lot of handler type stuff, and you really had to think about what was going on, and you really had to be able to talk your dog into a destination and a location, and it made us work. It made me work the first series really, really hard as far as using my brain. So
do you feel like so you had how many dogs? 20, 20-ish, 21? 22.
I passed 40% of my dogs, so yeah.
And you run the same order every single time, right?
Well, yes, so the Grand makes the running order. So you get the first running order, then when after each series, you know, dogs drop out, and the Grand makes the running order for you. And
so for you personally,
jumble up the dogs.
Do you feel like, let's say, the second half of the dogs you run are a little bit higher pass rate because you've run these dogs and you've learned so much from let's say the first 10? No,
it depends on what dogs are there, and it depends on your weather conditions, because
right.
Usually you don't want to be in the first 10 dogs because that's early morning. That's very, very difficult. And you don't want to be in the last 10 dogs because the sun's going down. It's very, very difficult. So them dogs that are stuck in the first in the back, you know, a lot of times are victims of just poor lighting and weather, because they have to get done. They have to get done with the Grand, right? So we have to run it. Hang on a second. We got my son. My son's coming in. Makes my dog bark. But you know, sometimes you have to. It just matters when you run. And the amount of dogs that we run, I'm from the very beginning to the very end, and you just hope you get good weather, and you hope you get good lighting, because let's face it, they run 900 dogs in 5 days, and we've got to get done.
That's crazy.
So they run as early as possible, and they run as late as they possibly can, and I understand why they do that, but when that happens, it's just there's dogs that they run a bad timing, and that's all there is to it. That is, you know, you got to put your big girl panties on, and that is part of the deal, and you've got to learn to accept it. You got to learn to be accepted, and there's nothing you can do about it. And you just hope you get through it. That's all you can do.
I can't remember where the question came from, but someone, I think they might have just messaged me. They were curious of what the last portion, which is the upland, what exactly does that entail? What do they break that down for me?
So that is it's a cold honor with a walk up. So you have 2 holding blinds. The first dog, you have a cold honor. So you boys walk together. And then a bird comes out of the winger, you both shoot at it. It's dead, it's chuckered. You both shoot at it, and it hits, and then the working dog goes and gets the bird, and you're the cold honor, and you have to honor that. And then you move over to the other holding blind, and now you're the working dog. So then you come out, and you both walk out, and then you get to pick up that bird. And then you walk down, and you go into the quartering part of it, and you get 1 flush. And you have gunners on each side, and the gunners are not – you still have to shoot a popper, and you get 1 flush. Now, you can blow multiple sit whistles. You can say sit, do whatever. But once you say sit or blow a whistle, and once your dog is stopped, and once you shoot your primer, you can no longer be involved. So then once you shoot your primer, then the gunners are told to shoot. Whether they hit it or not, it doesn't really matter. I mean, we don't want them to hit it, but sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But once you shoot your primer, you're no longer involved. So if that dog moves and you go tweet, you're out. But once you shoot your primer, it doesn't have to sit, it just has to stop, show steady, the bird hits the ground, you can send them. And then that's it, you're done. It can be the easiest thing you've ever seen or the most heartbreaking thing you've ever seen in your life. It is so heartbreaking. I've lost them in the fifth, and oh my God, it's terrible.
Yeah, you get all that way and
It's
do all
terrible.
of that.
It's terrible. And your scores don't matter in the first 4 series when you get to the fifth. They don't matter. If you pass the upland, then you get a grand pass.
Mm-hmm.
So you could front foot every mark.
So there's no 1-0-1-2. It's just pass fail on.
No. You could front foot every mark, line every blind, and you break in the upland, you're out. It doesn't matter.
Oh man, all twos and then breaking the upland. That would be devastating.
Bad. And what this was a really special grand for me, and I've been chasing a number for a long time. Well, not a long time, but I got my 60th Grand Hunter Retriever champion, so I actually got 61
wow.
Grand Hunter Retriever champions now, and that's a number I'm really, really proud of.
Yeah, that's fun. That's unbelievable.
Now I'm chasing 70, so hopefully that happens next year. But that's a number we've been trying to chase for a while, and I'm really happy.
That is phenomenal.
There's not many people that have 60+ grand champions. I can tell you that.
Do you think there's any chance of 100 before you retire?
For me, you know, I don't know that because it's different now. Because back in the day, you could only run 8, then you can only run 12, and now you can run as many as you want. I'm not going to say that's unattainable at all, but that's a lot. I mean, I'm going to see one of my best friends, Chris Aiken. I'm going to see him get 100. There's no doubt. He's in the high 80s right now, and there's no doubt in my mind he's going to hit 100, and I'm going to get to see it. He'll be the first one to 100. He'll be the first one to 100 Grand Hunter Retriever champions in history. He'll be the first one,
man.
And I'll hopefully get to see that. So,
61 is something certainly.
I'm going to try to get 70, and we'll just keep going. You know, like I always tell people, just pick up the go bird. So I'm just going to try to get to 70 and see what happens. Go to 80. So.
And how many years have you been going to the Grand? 25? 20, 25?
20. I think 2003 or 2004 was my first year running the Grand, somewhere in there. So it's 20 years.
Yeah, man, that's incredible.
Yeah, it's not bad. So the second Grand I ever ran was up in Bong in Wisconsin. The second Grand I ever ran up there. So it was fun to go back up there.
Do you have a favorite location for the Grand to be at?
I really like it up there. It's really easy to get around. The roads are really good. The parking's really good. Now the grounds are hard. Don't get me wrong, but I really like it up there. It's beautiful. It's green. There's trees and the parking. And like I said, it's a big enough area to hold it. I really like it up there. I liked it in Cheraw, South Carolina. Was out there too. That was fun. But I really don't care about the locations usually. I just want passes and go home. But I enjoyed Wisconsin because of the grounds. Just it's easy to park and drive, and it can rain and you're fine. You don't get mud. It's beautiful grounds. They do a really good job up there.
So you said Flash has 9, 8 or 9. What is it?
9.
9.
Yeah.
What's the most passes you've ever had by a single dog?
9.
9. So 10 would. So if one more and then Flash will break the record.
Yeah. And I wanted to get 10 grand passes on Jet. He had 9 as well, but he passed away before we could do that. He had 9. O'Malley had 8. Flash has got 9.
Man,
you know, it's Charlie. So she's got 6 grand passes, and that's the most grand passes on a female I've ever had. So she's gonna do something. If we can keep her healthy, she's gonna do something very special. She's very, very special.
How old is she?
She just turned 5.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
she could break the record.
We're not gonna talk about it, but that definitely is in the back of our mind, and I'd love to get her the female record. I think it's 11 is the female record. I have to look it up. But
what's the male record?
I think it's 16. Mason had one that was 16. Which is incredible. I mean, it is incredible. So yeah, I think Mason had 16 passes. Like I said, we're not, and Byron and I know the records, and they know it in the back of our minds. And there's a lot of things that need to happen to make that happen. But Charlie is on a pace to do something extremely special.
And whose dog is that?
Byron Hassel.
Okay.
Right.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
I don't recall that. He didn't. He was running Maverick. when I was
We
up
have
there.
Maverick. That's his too. Maverick's got
Right.
4 Grand Passes. 4.
Okay.
And so here's the crazy thing about the Grand is Maverick's one of the best dogs in the entire kennel. I mean, he's never failed a weekend test. He's got 4 Grand Passes, and he's an M&H. And I mean, he's never failed a national. I mean, this dog he failed 1 national. I take that back. But he never fails. And then the dog Vader that I own, HRCH Master Hunter with 1 Grand Pass, 1 national pass, and he just won a qual a couple weeks ago. So he's QA2. Him and Maverick both, the wind switched, and him and Maverick both double handled in the first series of the Grand. So,
and you never would have expected that.
No, me neither. But here's what I'm saying is people that are like, your dog goes out, and the last podcast, Chris is like, hey, it doesn't matter when your dog goes out. If your dog is there, it deserves to be there. Remember him saying that? So
yep.
It doesn't matter when you go out. They ran at a weird time, and they just went out. And just because your dog goes out in the first series doesn't mean they need to be there. There's just stuff you can't control. I mean, Vader and Maverick is literally some of the best dogs in the entire kennel. And I watched the line super confident in them going, we're about to hammer this thing. And they both went out. So when people say, oh, my dog doesn't deserve to be there because it went out in the first series and get all pouty and bitchy and mopey about it, them dogs have got Grand Passes, and they're some of the best in the country, and they went out. There's nothing you can do about it. They're just dogs.
Yeah.
They're just dogs. Right. And they do, but if they are on the trailer and they deserve to be there, they need to deserve to be there.
I'm sure this doesn't happen to you as long as you've been doing it, but when you first started, if you have a couple of just hammers like that go out early, how does it affect you, your psychology, or have you had problems in the past of like, how do you handle that mentally as a handler? When
I was a younger handler, it would bother me a little bit, but I've always been really good at, and I've done this since I was little, way younger in my teens and 20s. I've always been really good at compartmentalizing different things and not dwelling on them, because I just, for some reason, I in my brain, I'm not bragging or nothing, just how my brain works, I can have chaos around me and be fine. I start doing mental like lists. Okay, do this, now let's do this, then let's do this. Because if you let the list compound on top of you, you just mentally just go crazy. And I've always been really good at just kind of chilling out and letting it happen, and just just tackle one thing at a time. And when I do it, any national event I run, or even any weekend test I run, I literally sit up there. I always say this to people, hey, just go get the go bird. But I honestly, truly believe that. I break it down in if you got 3 marks and a blind, okay, you got 4 tasks to do. You got to pick up each mark, then you got to run a blind. And I don't worry about the next task until the first task is done. I'm not running the marks worrying about the blind. Yeah. When I run the marks, I'm worrying about this mark, and I worry about this mark. And so that I've been really blessed to be able to do something like that. I can, in my brain, I can shut that stuff off. But it does rattle you a little bit. Like when Maverick went out, you could push me over with a feather. I was like, right. I'm like, what? Yeah. And everybody's like, what? And then when Vader went out, I'm like, what the hell is going on? And
right.
I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there was a lot better dogs. Those are some of the best dogs there. And I had dogs going in the 4th and 5th that aren't even as good as those dogs. And it's just, it's just how it goes,
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot to mention one dog that passed, a dog named Rainey, who we own. She got her 2nd Grand Pass too. She's incredible. I forgot about her. She passed too. So she got a grand title. But
nice.
That was a nice dog.
And you were handling that dog as well?
Yeah. I handled them all.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah, they're nice dogs. But I had a really good crew. I have the crew. I was thinking about that today, training all these young dogs that we got. The Cams and the Rivers and the all these young dogs we got coming up that are running master right now that we're trying to qualify for the national. A bunch of those are going to run the grand this fall. I may have close to almost 30 damn dogs in this fall grand.
Wow.
That is, you want to talk about a mental, it is, the thing about the grand is when you run, that many dogs, 15 dogs and up, if everybody's like, it's mentally tasking, and it is. But if you're not in physical shape, you're so tired, your mental doesn't work. So you have to be it helps you to be in good physical condition. That helps you mentally. And that's part of the deal, is keeping your head in the game from the very first dog to the very last dog throughout the entire day. And you got to do it over and over and over. So keeping that mental focus is difficult if you're having troubles walking.
Yeah, I can't imagine, because I mean, I've got my one dog and I go to a weekend test and I'm sitting there for days later contemplating all these little moves I made and everything. You're talking 30 dogs at the Grand. I mean, it's like, that's got to be mentally just exhausting.
It is. And in my notes on my book and my phone, it literally, I'll have Flash turns to the right, and then I'll have Charlie, right lead turns to the right, left lead turns to the left. I mean, so I know and I look at my phone before I run them, and I know which way. So I know which way they turn. And some dogs turn different ways, and you have to understand that and realize their strengths and weaknesses. And you got to do your best to put them in situations to succeed. And it's tough to do.
Yeah.
But it's that go as sent, that point and shoot trick, or that tool that you guys have to have. That saved my butt at the Grand so bad, and it's just it's one of them things, and you've got to be able to have that. So you're not gonna see every mark. You're not gonna see every mark.
Yeah.
And I think I handled 7 handles in the area. So that dog got in the area and was digging around in there. If I thought they were going to jump out of there, I blew the whistle, put them on the bird. I think I did that 7 times.
Yeah, and we had talked about that at that pre-grand, about how much you do that. So
yeah. But that's our job. As a dog and a handler, we're a team, and they help me and I help them, and you can't look at it as like, oh, he should have found the mark. We're a team. We got to figure that out together, and that's why I'm there. So,
right.
But other than that, I don't have anything else about the Grand. I think Tracy Stubbs and the Grand Committee, the time management that those guys have is absolutely incredible. I've never seen anything like it. They're so good at that, and they work so hard. And I'm happy to call Tracy one of my friends, and that whole committee, Mike Botts, them guys, they're fantastic people. And they did a great job. They really did a great job.
So what's next for Flatlander Kennels over the next few weeks to a month? Just training and hitting weekend tests?
We've had a really busy May running HRC and AKC. Tanner and Isaac went to South Dakota this last weekend, did a fantastic job and running finishing the season in South Dakota this last weekend, passed a bunch of dogs, got a bunch of titles. I leave on Wednesday night for Custer, South Dakota. I got to run a double master. I'm only taking 16 dogs, so that's not that many. I know it sounds like a lot, but it's really not. And so now we're going wide open, run a master test, trying to qualify for the national, and then Tanner's going to be running Tanner and Isaac are going to be running HRC for us. So we're wide open right now.
Yeah.
So
all right, well, let's go ahead and shut this down. Next episode, we're going to be, I think, doing Q&A, right?
Yeah, I think Q&A. I think our next flow chart thing is cold blinds, and we need to talk about that a little bit. I know we had some people asking about that, but.
Yeah, we need to finish it off because I'm sure there's people out there that are using it for their progression, and so we need to finish it off. So
next episode.
I can tell you, my next dog, I'm pretty much just gonna. That's what I'm gonna use.
Yeah, it seems to work really good for people. And so our next episode will be cold blinds and a little bit of Q&A. Keep it kind of shorter, and that way I can eat some dinner and go to sleep. I still have not recovered from the Grand. I am still exhausted. I can
tell. You almost seem like you're kind of not feeling well. I can tell how exhausted you are.
I'm exhausted, and if Isaac wouldn't have went with me, I'd have been dead. I mean, he did. He was a beast. So because he got the dogs out and aired. So when I got off the line, so that's what's nice about taking. When I got off the line, Isaac come and got that dog and took it back. Yeah. And I stayed up by the line, then he would air him, bring me the next one, and we worked really good as a team. That helped me a bunch.
Yeah, so, that would take a lot off your plate just to grab the dog.
Because I go in a bit early, and he waters the dogs and takes care. I mean, he helped me a lot. So I'm grateful.
So you don't hardly have any downtime. It's run a dog, get in line, basically.
Yes, correct.
With that many dogs.
Yes. And then once people start getting knocked out, then it's literally every other dog all day long. So. And I prefer that. I prefer to run every other dog, and let's just do it. I don't like to run a dog, wait 10 dogs. I want if they would let me pull my truck and trailer up by the line I would run every other dog and just
boom,
be done.
boom, boom.
Let's just get done, because I get into that groove. You get in the groove, and you're getting in the groove, and then you got to wait. You're like, I would just rip the Band-Aid off. Let's just get it over with.
Yeah, and I would think if you make a mistake or something unexpected happens, just going right to to dog is probably better than thinking about it.
It's a reset. Next dog, let's go. So,
yep.
All right, everybody.
All right.
Thank you for listening. See everybody at the line. Take that in.
Gotta strike this chord with the humble hearts, bearing heavy chains and blue collar scars.